Hey guys, so I'm going to do a video tonight about a problem that I typically run into with these, why do I always forget what they're called? Panels. These panel canvases. When they dry bowed, and the canvas stands up and the cardboard pushes away from it. And when you have a really pretty painting, or especially with this one, it's the first paint pour my husband ever did with me, so it's kind of sentimental, and I want to make sure it looks nice. And I'm sure if I'm having this issue, other people are having this issue, so how about if we figure out how to fix the issue together? I'll show you what I've been doing with mine and see if it helps you with yours. I have to say that my craft room happens to be connected to the living room, and my husband and second to oldest daughter are sitting out there having a daddy-daughter moment, watching a movie, and it's quite loud, so you may hear them laughing, joking, or making noises. So, the first thing I do, my fan is not cooperating with me. I always try to keep a fan on in my work area on low speed because I want to keep any particles of dust or anything moving away from my workspace. I personally have found that that works well for me, especially when I'm painting or doing a pour. I don't want dust or anything in my painting, so a lot of people would say, well, it could suck in from the back and shoot through the front. Personally, I've never had that problem. I just keep everything dusted and clean, and that's not a problem. But anyway, so we're working with this one tonight. This is from the night we did our angry pours, when we were both having a very bad night. Something really horrific was happening to both of us, and I chose kind of angry colors, and I did my painting, and then I asked my husband if he wanted to do one, and he did. So this is what his ended up looking like. It has not been resined or sealed with gloss or anything yet, and that's because, as you can see, there's a dip in the middle, and that's because it's bowed. And the canvas has lifted up from the cardboard, or the cardboard has separated itself from the canvas. So, moving forward, how do you fix that? Well, the way I fix it is, I put parchment paper down first and make sure it's very clean and very dry. And I lay the piece down, the panel canvas down, and then I take my water bottle, my spray water bottle, and sorry, I have to make sure it's spraying properly, and I kind of saturate the back of the panel, and then I give it a minute to let it soak in, to make sure that that cardboard's getting nice and wet. And I don't know if you saw it or not, but water will bubble up around the edges, and you don't want that to end up ruining your painting. So if that does happen, you can just take a paper towel and dry off your parchment paper. And oftentimes, even though I start off with a dry piece of parchment paper, I end up putting a second piece of parchment paper down before I finalize the process of flattening these. Because you don't want anything to happen to the painting itself in the process. Since I have the fan on, I'll just dry that off a little bit. And this is good and dry again. So I'll go ahead and lay it back down. And one of the hard things about this is the paint that dripped over when he did the pour, because he is not familiar with doing pours. He didn't know that he needed to be wiping the sides off to keep the paint from, and I'm so sorry, my camera's connected to my work area tonight, so it's bouncing around a little bit. But he didn't know he was supposed to be wiping the edges off to keep it from dripping to the back of the painting. So it's kind of hard to see to it that the water is getting up under all that. But I assure you, it's paper, it's cardboard, it's going to soak up everywhere. So I can see that that's soaked in pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and spray it again. And I'm going to put my hand in front of the fan and just kind of spray where I've already sprayed, but especially where you can see that the canvas on the backside, obviously, since that's where we're working, didn't soak up water the first time. You want it to get good and wet. Let it sit for just another minute. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up again. Make sure there's no water on the actual painting. And then dry the parchment paper off again. And as long as you keep the parchment paper pretty well dry, almost as soon as it gets wet, you should be able to keep the same piece of parchment paper throughout the whole process. But again, if it gets too wet, you're going to want to lay another piece of parchment paper down. And like I said earlier, I always lay an extra one down just to be sure. I mean, you can buy a roll of 25 square foot parchment paper at the dollar store for $1. This is what I get. Of course, it's backwards because I have the camera flipped around. But this is basically what it looks like. Then I'm going to press on it a little bit to see if it feels pliable at all. And it still feels a little stiff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray it one more time, get it nice and really wet, and then I'm probably going to let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, where I'll put you guys on pause, and then we'll see how it acts after that time. Just going to turn the fan off this time for a second. Give it a real good soak, because this one's being extremely stubborn. Alright, so I'll be back in about 5 minutes, but to you it'll seem like 1, 2, 3. And we're back. And as you can see, when I press down on it, or I hope you can see it, it's much easier to move around now. So we're going to go ahead and grab another piece of parchment paper. I'm going to pick up the painting, lay the parchment paper down, and the piece underneath is dry. It just has some crinkles in it from where the water touched it before, but 2 pieces of parchment paper never hurt anything. And I should have mentioned that you should always do this in a place where you're not going to need to move your project, because it's going to need to sit for at least 24 hours. So we're just going to dry off the painting one more time. Whether you see water on there or not, you just want to be really careful. Make sure there's no water or anything sticky on the painting. And go ahead and lay it face down again. And then at this point, another piece of parchment paper. And put it directly over the back. And the parchment paper is so nothing sticks. You don't want, just in case when you put the weight on the back, like we're going to, if it does squish any water down, you don't want the painting to stick to what it's laying on. So we use the parchment paper to make sure when you pick it up, nothing sticks. And then what I do is I pick a couple of hardbound books that I've already read without advertising too much. And I lay the books right on the painting. Try not to move them around too much. And then I take a couple of really big rocks. And I set them on both sides of the books. And I leave it set for at least 24 hours. Typically, within that 24 hours, I will come back and I will find my painting at least flat. Maybe not completely dry yet, because obviously there's no air flow getting into it. But it's at least taking its shape, or flattening back out, however you want to say it. Sometimes I have to move the rocks in the books and look at it, kind of let some air get to it. I'll leave it sit out for an hour, maybe a half hour, depending on how wet it still seems. And then I put it right back in the parchment paper, put the books and the rocks back on just like I left them before, and I'll go a whole nother night. And usually, after I do that, the painting comes out pretty well perfect and straight. So I don't know how to pause videos and add to them yet, but this will end up being a 2-part video. I'll stop this one here, and I will do another one when this canvas is done, or perhaps I'll check it with you guys in another video and see where it's at. I don't know. We'll just see what happens. I'm still new to doing all this. I just want to make my viewers happy. So anyways, this is how I flatten my canvases that are being unruly after they were painted. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And if you do, hit that little notification bell next to subscribe so you can see whenever I put up a new video, because they are coming out all the time now. And I really enjoy doing this with you guys. And comments are always welcome. Constructive criticism in a positive way is a great thing. I really love hearing from you guys. And I hope you have a great night, day, or whenever it is you're watching this. And just remember, the earth without art is just Bye.